charges that Esther and former Chair Isla gave me when I came in and gives us all is to really tell the positive stories that you all develop and are involved in every day. And I think we've had some great successes. I hung the latest one up on the wall back there. That's the front page of the Star Advertiser this morning. We did a media day for the Kokee Forest Restoration and reforestation and replanting project on Wednesday and got a lot of broad coverage. It was front page of the Garden Island yesterday, front page of the Star Advertiser today. We had some television coverage last night. None of the TV stations elected to come, so they got live video from the little camera there, but they did use it, and a couple of them did full packages on it. So we're always heartened when we get that kind of coverage, and that's really what we're going to talk about today. How this team, with your help, can tell the stories, the great stories that you all have in your various divisions, and give you some tips on how to do that. But we want to start with some protocols. Most of you know that the agency has had media contact protocols for many, many years, if not decades, and they really haven't changed a whole lot. And periodically, we have to reinforce them with certain individuals. I don't think any of you in this room, but it's always good to have a reminder. And so Debbie is going to handle that part of the presentation.
It's not rocket science, but it's good for us to clarify with staff from time to time, especially if we have new people. The idea of a protocol is simply to keep each other informed, okay? You are the management staff, you are the guys on the ground, you are the face that the public sees most often. But if a news reporter wants to do a story about something that DLNR is involved with, they may come to you first, or they may call my office. We're trying to get them to understand that they should start with our office first, so we can better understand what they're needing, when they're needing it, how they're needing it, and we can work with administrators, program managers, and keep the chair in the loop. So it's not about denying your ability to speak to the press, but we want to go through a process first to make sure that we are clear and we understand what's being asked for us. And if possible, look out for the little hidden traps that sometimes come with news stories. They may not tell you right up front that this is related to something nasty or bad that people are saying about us. And hopefully with our interrogation of the reporter, oh, did I say interrogation?
You did. That's usually the reporters interrogating them.
It works two ways, let me tell you. So we want to find out if they're looking for dirt, or what dirt they already have. So that's a way in which hopefully we can help you be prepared and help protect them, protect the friends. So they call you, direct them politely to call us. It's okay to find out what they want, but direct them to call us and, hey, just shoot a quick email, direct them to us, and then we will vet it and we'll be back to you. And we'll probably, we'll need to verify this or work it out with your division administrator, program manager, and make sure the chair is involved. And that's part of the hustle that's on our part, to hustle and find out what it is that they're asking for, work it out by calling you, you know. Many of you have gone through this before, so you understand that to the maximum extent possible, there may be a time element involved. Would we rather a story go out without our input to correct or balance what could be otherwise a one-sided story? I think we'd rather have our chance to have correct and balancing information. So unless it's an onerous task to compile lots of stuff that really may not be necessary for a short-term story, please work with us and help us to resource whatever your story needs. On the outgoing side, we are going to be talking about developing press releases and other means of getting information out. So You're the eyes and ears, you're the heart and brain of DLNR. And you know what's going on, and we would like you to be putting on your thinking cap and thinking strategically also. How is what you do advancing and improving the natural resources, the management of our lands? And what is the story that you
I'm
want
just
to
wondering
share or that people
whether
aren't
we,
understanding? There's a way to address that through information and
salvage
education.
company.
So let us help you brainstorm. Currently, people are concerned about what's going on down at Waikiki Beach with erosion, and there's a larger story there. And rather than reporters just picking up some random tourists from who knows where, saying, this looks awful, why doesn't the state fix it? We're putting together a plan with OCCL to try to look at the larger picture of what's going on. It's fascinating, but it does kind of point to certain limits of what human beings can do when Mother Nature is going to take charge.
You're a reporter or news organization calling an agency like DLNR, you expect that we're just going to jump because you called. And we sometimes have to remind reporters that, you know, they're one of dozens of requests that oftentimes we get on a daily basis. We try to be as expeditious as we possibly can in responding to requests, and I think you all have been very helpful in doing that. But we also sometimes need to make the media understand, the reporter understand, that it takes time to gather information, particularly if there's any legal issues or if it's a complicated or controversial story. And sometimes, I think the Waikiki Beach erosion, we've had probably, a half dozen requests in the last couple of weeks, and we've just kind of said, you know, we're putting some information together, we'll get back to you and we'll get it out there. And that kind of comes to managing the message, not the media. I think with the Kokee, we were able to manage, and that doesn't really mean spin, that just means putting out as accurate and factual and good information as we possibly can. There was another example on the reverse side a couple of weeks ago when we had the coral disease in Kaneohe Bay, the coral disease outbreak there. We had reporters out, we did a news conference. One of our partners, who shall remain nameless, went off to the side with a reporter and equated it to Ebola in the water. And of course, the headline that morning on the front page of the Star Advertiser is Ebola in Kaneohe Bay. And of course, it was really a bad analogy, but you know, we did our best to manage the message. We never used that terminology in any of our information, or it never came out of the mouth of any of the folks from DAR who were doing the press. So we can do our best to manage the message. But we can't always, you know, be there 100% of the time. So that's, you know, the good and the bad of what happens. I know some of the folks were really upset, and I told them, I said, you know, don't be upset. We can do our part and get the word out there as accurately and factually as we possibly can. And, you know, when I was on the media side, I didn't let government agencies control what I did as a reporter or my reporters were doing. And so, you know, don't lose a whole lot of sleep over what gets reported out there. There are times that we want, you know, information to be corrected. That's probably going to be, you know, fairly rare. It has to be a pretty egregious example for the print media or the electronic media to actually run a correction. But certainly we can help facilitate that if it's necessary. One thing that we didn't point out, there's a little bit of a change with this administration, which from our perspective is a good change. Under the Abercrombie administration, every news release, every piece of paper that we sent out had to go through approval process across the street. That no longer is the case, unless it's something that really involves the governor, which is really refreshing because that oftentimes slowed down the flow of information pretty significantly. So we still, again, as Debbie said, have the chair's office approval process, but pretty quick about turning things around. So the quicker you all can get us information, the who, what, when, where, and why, which we're going to talk about a little later, the better, and we can, you know, be pretty fast in sending stuff out to the media. We have done communications plans, and that's for some of the big projects. And I think I have an example here. This is from the return of the Tanohata Village sign, which was Japanese marine debris that washed up at Kahuku, I think almost 3 years ago. And Dobor and I think you guys did helped do the identification and collected the sign. we put together a communications plan to really kind of guide our coverage and who was going to be involved, who was going to be tasked with what sort of issues. So if you have a big project, a communications plan is probably a really good way to go. And doesn't mean that you're going to follow it to a T and do the ABC. It may be C, D, F, or some semblance of that. But it's really a good guide for everyone involved to have that communications plan. And the first thing that I usually put is just an overview of what the project is. We originally called this What Makes News, but as Debbie and I got to talking about it, what we do and what we do with your help basically is tell stories and tell good stories. And that's really what it comes down to. As I said at the beginning, this agency has so many great stories. It's just a plethora of great stories. And just every day there's 3, 4, 5, a dozen stories that kind of rise to the surface that we'd like to tell. That my philosophy was anything that's of interest to anyone, any individual person, is a story. So I would encourage you all to kind of think in those terms, that if you have something that you find of interest, or your spouse or significant other or friend or family member or a colleague finds of interest, it's probably a story, and we can help you develop that into a story. You looked like you were praying or about to say something.
Please call us, please. Let us know.
Yeah, there's just,
Please.
yeah. She shouldn't beg, because that's going to make our workload go even greater. But
Don't make me come hunt you out and twist your arm behind you.
Okay.
typically we support all of our stories with video, with pictures, with web components and social media components. So there's this whole menu or package of things that we can send out. And I think I'll use the Hawaii Invasive Species Awareness Week, because that's the most recent one. We did, I think, 4 different videos associated with HISA. We had a news release. We had about 8 live morning news appearances. And Josh was one of the stars of Stage and Screen that morning. Did a great job. It was posted on numerous websites and social media sites, and it just really expands the reach and the frequency of the images and the impressions that we get with people. And it used to be in the old days you could talk to the newspapers and the TV stations and the radio stations, and that's all you had to do. Nowadays you got to talk to everybody on all kinds of different platforms. But that's why you see, most news organizations, if not all news organizations, they have pretty active, beefy websites. And it used to be you would wait to break the news until the 5 or 6 o'clock news. Nowadays, unless it's kind of an exclusive story, you're going to break it on the website as soon as you have it.
If you know that at certain times of the year, major activities are going to take place, make a general plan, make a general calendar, and share that with us so we can work with you. You may have something that you want to feature every month of the year, or every 2 months, every 3 months. It's up to you. How much time, energy, good deliverables are you anticipating? And then we can work with you on creating output that is going to be beneficial and reasonable use of your time and energy.
Which is it's probably the biggest in recorded history on Kauai.
Just to talk about elements of a news release, and it's really comes down to the who, what, when, where, and why. That's your factual basis. But again, as we just said, you really want to put some color in there. Debbie and I have had some rather lively discussions about all of our news releases, starting with the Department of Land and Natural Resources. Well, if I'm an editor in a newsroom and I see that, it's like, oh God, here they go again. I'm going to fall asleep. So what happens is we oftentimes bury the lead by starting our news releases that way.
I'm Lisa Hadway. I'm the administrator for Department of Land and Natural Resources, Division of Forestry and Wildlife.
Very few people, other than some online organizations, print a news release verbatim. It's pretty rare. They're usually used as tip sheets, or they may extract a quote from the news release. But most news organizations want to get their own quotes in person, either on the phone, on camera, or talking to you in person. So the news release is really just kind of the formal document that we use as one element to get the word out about a particular story. And again, I think if you can provide us with who, what, when, where, and why, And we love it when you draft a release and let us kind of wordsmith it. That saves us a lot of time. And that really helps ensure that you guys get your message into the release up front. But we can help you craft those and be sure that we're getting all the information that needs to be in there.
Go back to the idea about an attention-getting lead, which is the first paragraph of a news release. You know, you want in that paragraph to not only capture the reader's attention or the news director's attention, but you want to convey the gist of the importance of what's going on, you know, and why should someone care, you know? If you are clearing away mangrove from the shores of a wetland, you know, why should someone care about that, you know? If you say that you're clearing, you know, 20 acres of mangrove at a wetland that will provide new and enhanced habitat for Hawaii's endangered native water birds, that's more likely to be something that someone's going to care about, you know. Think about what the public is going to care about. It may not be everyone, but somebody out there is going to care. And if you can put that in there, then you've got them. And one important component, if you can remember it, is to build in information about how the public can learn more. Is there a way for them to be engaged or to help, you know? Even if it's just to seek out more information. For more information, go to this website. For more information, call this number. For more information, you know, email this person, you know. People are looking for ways to become engaged, and if you offer that to them, you know, you're just building a clientele that's going to be relying on us.
The advisory may come before or after the news release, kind of depending, but typically the media advisory, if we're going to have a news conference or a media opportunity or a media event, the advisory comes out usually a couple of days in advance. And this is really a planning tool for news organizations as much as anything. And this one again was for the Sacred Falls video release. It's basically one straightforward paragraph about, you know, what the project is about. It has the who, what, when, where, and why. And this was announcing a news conference that we were going to have at Sacred Falls. What that doesn't show is we contacted all the local television stations to come up to Sacred Falls and do morning live shots that morning prior to the news conference. Probably the one hazard in doing this, that since they were there at beginning at 4 o'clock or 4:30 in the morning, by the time 8:30 rolls around, they'd gotten everything that they needed. And so when we had the news conference, I think it was just the Associated Press, and I don't think the advertiser even came out for that one. So yeah, we had a news conference, but it was very sparsely attended because all the media had already completed all their work between 4:30 and 8:30 in the morning. Neither here nor there, but that's something that, you know, I think people who are involved in the news conference are going, well, no one showed up. Well, you just been talking to them, and I think we had 12 different live morning shots that morning, so we had tons of coverage. And we're going to talk a little more about this one because this one had such a multitude of elements involved in it, because, and Josh is going to talk a little bit about it in a few minutes, the social media elements, which was really the reason we did this particular project, is to kind of counter some of the erroneous and bad information that was out there on blogs and social media sites. But again, if you can provide us the information, the who, what, when, where, and why, we can craft these. They're easy to do. You want to get it into us, you know, I'd say week and a half prior to the event, because we do need to send it out minimally 24 hours in advance, but 48 hours is better, so that the planning editors and the assignment editors have a chance to get it on their calendar and plan for it. And that just helps ensure that you're going to have better attendance.
So with the rise of the internet and this shift to moving towards social media, DLNR has also adopted the same philosophy of incorporating those platforms such as Facebook, Vimeo, YouTube, Instagram, Twitter into our system. And we've made a lot of progress in terms of being more transparent and aware in the public, basically providing them with video feeds, providing them with up-to-date information on what's going on within DLNR and issues that are pertinent to our departments and divisions. So we've kind of incorporated a lot of those social media aspects into our issues and stories that we tell. And Dan was mentioning earlier about our Sacred Falls, and that was a really big move towards making our issue of that enforcement well known, because there was a bunch of videos that a bunch of people outside in the community posted, regarding Sacred Falls, saying, it's safe to go in there, even though if there's a bunch of signs. There's ways and trails that you can go to get into the falls area, and a lot of the enforcement that we did was try to combat that. We did a lot of Facebook, and we also created a video to implement that into our sites, and then infiltrate it to all of those websites and blogs that were telling people to that were directing people to the Sacred Falls site. And from that, we got a lot of news release. We got a lot of publicity and media attention in just being more transparent and showing those issues.
I just wanted to underscore how groundbreaking this is in terms of the adding a new punch to our output of messaging, to be able to fight fire with fire on these social media platforms. It does take, it takes tools, and it really takes somebody to do that, to do the I want to call search and destroy, but not quite so extreme. But he was our scout. Josh scouted it, and Josh delivered. So, that's a huge addition to our staff, in addition to the kind of video and television packaging and output that Dan can do. So, all you need to do is provide us with the firepower, and we'll be locked and loaded and ready to run.